You're tuned into Ronversations, the podcast where real talk meets real change, straight from the heart of Santa Fe. I am your host, Ronald Trujillo, candidate for mayor in the 2025 Santa Fe election. Ronversation dives into issues that matter most to our community, from public safety to affordable housing, local jobs to transparent government, and everything in between. No scripts, no spin, just honest dialogue and bold ideas for a resilient Santa Fe. This is a space for open conversation, real solutions, and a shared vision for our city's future. Glad you're here. Let's talk. Buenos dias, Santa Fe, and welcome once again to Ronversations. Today, I'm honored to have Mr. Michael Harkavy, a dear friend, and also my campaign manager. Michael, if you give the listeners out there just a little background about who you are and what you've done.
Well, my life in Santa Fe has really been shaped around being, sort of almost a member of the Trujillo family. So that has been very, very much a big privilege for me. But my background is in media. I'm a global media executive. I spent many years in book publishing, many years in Hollywood, doing film and television, music, video games. I also consult to United States government. I consult to foreign governments, and I work on very specific political campaigns.
And you are also a veteran of the United States Armed
I
Forces.
am a disabled veteran of the United States Army Infantry. Yes.
Thank you for your service, Michael.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
So, Michael, this is our second go around.
Right.
You were my campaign manager when we ran the first time, and I'm honored that you took on the task again.
Of course.
Asking you as my campaign manager, what are your your vision of this campaign as going forward?
Well, my vision of the campaign is really my vision of who Ron Trujillo is. And I've known Ron a long time. And Ron has a sense of history of Santa Fe and his commitment to the people of Santa Fe. And it's not just the current people. Ron's aware of the ancient cultures. He's aware of the Spanish influence over the last 500-600 years. So it's that awareness that Ron has, and bringing all of that past into the present and into the future is something that is highly unusual in most political candidates. So that's one of the things that really makes me very happy to be his campaign manager, but also his sense of government. Because I was going to a lot of the city council meetings when Ron was a city councilman. He has a fundamental understanding that you just can't be a politician behind a bunch of issues. You have to have a government that is well organized, the departments must be effective, and he has that knowledge. So combining the issues with the actual structure of the government is something I've learned from Ron, and that's really why I'm really happy to be his campaign manager, because I'm learning a lot about being a mayor of an American city, but the oldest American city in the country. So it's quite interesting for me.
And another thing we've discussed is restructuring the way city government is working.
Yes.
Now, because we want a government that works for the people, basic services, but we want also one that's going to work into the future.
Right.
So we've been having the discussion. We call it the Santa Fe 6 in 2026 plus, because we're not just talking 2026, we're talking 2027, 2020, and further out. We want to make, like I said, a sustainable city, that everybody here in the city flourishes and has a great quality of life.
Right.
Yeah, so we've been discussing a lot of stuff, such as, we have, fiscal and administrative responsibility and accountability. These are issues that, that we've seen, that we've heard from people, and we've talked to people. It just isn't working in the city right now.
Right.
So when we're discussing this, what do you think are the key issues that we need to be focusing on?
I think there are two major events taking place. That the role of a mayor of an American city is no longer the mayor who is overseeing just a geographic area. The mayors of the American cities are looking at the world. They're looking at things globally. They're looking at things nationally. But the other big issue here is that you have to have a governmental infrastructure that is prepared to be in a global world. Now, I think that's one of the real challenges that we're seeing here, The government infrastructure is not prepared for the global world. One of the things we talk about a lot is, we both discussed the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And when you go onto that website, you see there are all the mayors in the world are meeting each other. The mayors of the United States went to Poland and met with all the mayors of the Ukraine. Uh, you have mayors of, Canada and Mexico talking to the American mayors. What's interesting here is that the history of Santa Fe, that this is the oldest city in the world, and it was part of the first global empire of the world, the Spanish Empire. And what I always tell Ron is, by the time Columbus got to the New World, Spain was already trading here from Asia. So we have a very interesting cultural context here for someone running for mayor. It's not just like you're in some other city. This is almost an ancient city. So that part of it, Ron gets, and he's also part indigenous and part Hispanic, So I think the real challenges are, and we spend a lot of time doing this, and Ron does too, is, what are the strategic issues? And Ron is very clear about that. It's on the website as well, you know. But you have to have the right people. You have to be able to train them. You have to be able to review them and adapt. And also, it's a different type of messaging. So we spend a lot of time on this. That's at the heart of it.
I see, and that's the thing that I think we want to convey to the voters, to the people in Santa Fe. We're ready to to enter the mayor's office, day one, with a team
Right.
that understands government. This isn't a training ground. We are going to have the professional individuals that can come in, that can hit the ground running day one, and assess what's working and what's not working in city government, because that's the thing that we want to do. When we get into day one at the mayor's office, we're going to do an assessment of the entire city, because it needs to be done.
Right.
So we need to find out what's working, what's not working. If it's working, then let's keep it working, let's get it better. But if it's not working, we got to find out what's working. And the thing that we've talked about too is, we're going to talk to the employees. Because the employers, they're there 24/7. They're on the job all the time. They know what's working, they know what's not working, they know what they need. And what I've heard from a lot of city employees, the city doesn't listen. The mayor's office doesn't listen. The city manager's office doesn't listen. Our city councilors don't listen.
Right.
That's not the way city government should be run. I mean, when I was there, we were listening. We were talking to the employees. What do you need? How can we make your your job easier? So that you don't have to work so hard at doing this. And that was, like I said, I was there during the cost administration, and we ran, the city ran very well, very well. I was very happy with that. Proud that I was part of that. And that's what we want to get back to, because as I talk to people, morale at the city is bad.
Right.
It's not, people don't want to go to work. They're not, if I got to go to this, they're not happy. So that's the thing that we want to turn all this stuff around at City Hall is, we want to make the city of Santa Fe a place where you want to come to work, where you feel welcome and you feel valued. Right. That's the thing. We want our employees to be valued, because they are valued. Because, like I said, they're the ones that are doing the work. That a counselor, that a mayor, they may get the kudos, but guess what? It was these people, that in the front line that were doing the work, and that's what we want to convey to the citizens here in Santa Fe. That when I'm mayor, we're going to have a government that works for everybody. Basic city services. It's not going to take 4 days for constituent services to call you back. You're going to get an answer within 24 hours. So these are the things, and these are the strategic things that we've been discussing, for the last year, really.
Right. But a lot of what Ron is explaining here is reflected in his own history in the city council. People used to, I mean, I know, because I was in the meetings, and, people call up Ron and say, well, we have this problem, we senior citizens can't get this, or seniors, the homeless shelter. And so people had confidence in Ron as a member of the city council, and he delivered. And it's that spirit that is so critical. It's listening to the people. We are not necessarily a nation that listens. We're a nation that tends to speak. But Ron listens, and he's also a native son of Santa Fe, and so it is this philosophy about, not just being a politician, but being a human being and understanding what the needs are of the people. And he is of the people. And I think and I'll tell you, I go around and I talk to all the policemen, all the firemen, and you know what the one common thread is? They all know Ron. They all know him. And so this is where, once you see Ron and we're talking to people who, getting advice from people in the government, telling us, well, this isn't working, or that's not working. And it's pretty surprising. I'm not going to get into specifics, but I've spoken to people who are running departments and they said, we don't have a budget. We don't have a staff. We probably could make 30, $40 million a year, but we don't have a budget and we don't have a staff. Well, why is that? So but what Ron is really open to also, which is very popular now, not just in city government or state or what in federal government, bringing in the private sector, bringing in business people who could contribute to the government, and that's not happening here, and that's something that Ron is very aware of, and so that and so this is sort of an innovative approach to creating a very different and new government for the city of Santa Fe. That's what Ron is actually doing, and we're all trying to help him.
Well, we can just go down things like,
Mm.
we've talked already, Michael,
Mm.
fiscal and administrative responsibility and accountability.
Right.
That's something we're definitely going to bring to the
Mm.
city.
Mm.
We've talked about strategic planning,
Mm.
reporting for citywide services.
Mm.
So that's another issue.
Mm.
Review, evaluate, and adapt.
Mm.
These are the things we as a city need to, once we've done the reviews of all the departments, evaluations, then we're going to adapt to make things better,
Right.
and make things work
Mhm.
right.
Right.
We're going to have collaborative communication amongst public-private organizations. That's the thing you were just talking about,
Right.
in the private sector. But again, too, I'm talking about working with the state, working with
Right.
the county, working with the schools. This is something that we really don't do no more.
No.
What I've always said, what I've been saying is, what I would like to have when we're there in the mayor's office is quarterly meetings
Mm-hmm.
between the county, between the city, and the state. I want to have these dialogues. I was just I at the last Ronversations, we had Sam Bregman on here,
Right.
and one of the things we were discussing, and what Sam has is he's talking to the police, the county, the state, the city. That's what I would like for my city. The police department to be talking to the county, for them to be talking to the state all the time. So that we all know what's going on in the city, so that because we're all protecting, everything. It's not just the city, county, and
Right.
state. It's everybody. And I think when you have that collaboration between three entities right there, city, state, and county, it's a good thing.
Right.
Because we're talking, we know what's happening in the city, we know what's happening in the county, we know what's happening in the state. How do we collaborate to make our city safe?
Right. And the major point here that Ron is making is that politics tends to be about political power, not necessarily about communicating what is in the best interest of the people. It's sort of the best interest of the elected person. That type of politics is not going to work in Santa Fe, and it's not going to work anywhere. And what Ron is, outlining here is this is a government of the people. That's what the founding fathers wanted, of, by, and for the people. And so it's not easy to go into a major, a capital city and realize that the government is not that functional. It's just not. And the people know it. It's not just the people in the government; it's the citizens know it too. And Ron has enough experience with things that work and things that don't work, and I've seen it happen. And so this is a new era for the future of the government of Santa Fe, and it's going to be acknowledging the indigenous cultures, and acknowledging the centuries of Hispanic culture, the growth of the American culture in Santa Fe and New Mexico, but also we belong to and are part of a much larger world.
Exactly. And then we also talked about value-based economic development. We definitely we need to go out there and we need to talk to these businesses, be it wherever they are, and try to entice them to come to Santa Fe.
Right.
And we want to see, those types of jobs come here for our kids, for everybody.
Right.
One thing I've also talked about is, vocational training.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody wants to go to college. Not everybody, wants to get that 4-year degree, and not, so we need to look more into the vocational training, plumbing, electrician, automotive.
Right.
We've got some excellent, smart kids in this community. They just need given that chance.
Right.
And I think that is something that I want to work with the schools. Again, it's collaboration between schools, the city.
Right.
How do we do that? How are we able? We're talking about the Midtown campus. I think that's a perfect place where we could be able to put that, because back in the days we used to have Votech, which was on the Santa Fe High campus.
Right.
To this day, I mean, I talk to people here in Santa Fe that went through Votech. They're welders, they're plumbers, and they're all, Ron, had it not been for Votech, who knows where I would have ended up. Thank God for Votech, and I think that's something that we definitely need to start. We need to bring back.
Oh, absolutely. And the only way that's going to succeed is through the communication among all of the individuals who are stakeholders in it. Currently, right now, the city of Santa Fe doesn't really have a working relationship with the public schools, not necessarily a relationship with the county, but we all are here. We all are parents. We all are here to make sure that our children's futures are secured, and education is at the heart of the matter. And that value-based concept is a very new concept in business. Purpose-based, value-based things that bring out results in the society, not just that you have generated a lot of tax revenue, or that you can build something or other. You must deliver something that is quality of life, and that is the largest marketing concept in the world today, is value-based and purpose-based marketing. So the idea of having that type of marketing in the government is unusual, but it depends on the individuals.
And exactly like you're saying, like, we need to, when we get in there, we're going to be able to have these people that we talk to, and that are going to be able to, to understand and help the city, to thrive. That's the thing. The last thing we're on the 6 for 6 is, the preservation of historic, cultural, and traditional values. It's unfortunate, what we've seen happen here in Santa Fe over the last a few years, with cultures technically being pitted against each other.
Right.
When you see what happened, to the Soldiers Monument, on our historic plaza, you see the statue of Capitan General Don Diego de Vargas moved, and now it's at the museum. These are the things that I want to be able to reach out to our Pueblo brothers and sisters. Again, let's come to the table. Let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about our history, because it's a shared history.
Right.
That's what makes New Mexico such a wonderful state. The history, the cultures, and what makes Santa Fe the multicultural city that it is.
Right.
There's no other city in the world like
No,
Santa Fe. And there isn't. But I think that over these last few years, the dialogue has not been taking place. They've been, certain people have been invited to the table, but not everybody. And that's where I want to change this whole concept, is everybody is invited to the table. Let's talk. Let's have these discussions, because if we don't, we're just going to continue down this path, and it's going to probably get worse and worse and worse. So these are things that I've already reached out to the Pueblos, to set up meetings with them. So I'm looking forward to this, because I think it is good. We've got friends in the Pueblos, dear friends, and I think it'll be a good thing when we all start having these talks.
Well, and this is one of the reasons why I really support Ron's candidacy, is that it's important here in Santa Fe, because the sense of culture is millennial. And you have
Excuse me.
you have literally, the city of Santa Fe was a Tewa village 1,000 years ago. If you go down south to the Clovis area, those people have been here more or less for 11,000 years. So we inherit a very ancient culture. We have had ancient cultures here, and those cultures have a past, they have a present, and they want a future. And you have to be able to incorporate all of this, particularly since Santa Fe is perhaps the most unique capital city in the world because of its age, you know. And so Ron has been keenly aware of all of this. And this is the only way we're going to have an equitable school system. We're going to have a future where kids can get vocational training. And, you know, if you start looking at how things are divided now, it's not encouraging, you know, because tend to be divided as a society, and that is not ever going to work here in Santa Fe.
No, most definitely. And I believe I bring those values
Right.
that I can, I can reach out, to people. We can have conversation. We can have conversation that has a meaning.
Right.
That I can sit across from someone, and they can tell me, I want them to vent.
Right.
I want truth spoken, because if the truth isn't spoken and isn't told, then again, like we said, we're just going to be following the same path.
Right.
So definitely. So Michael, is there anything else you'd like to say? Dealing with the campaign. I mean, we've been at this now, going on I don't know how many months now, and it's been wonderful. There are some more trying days ahead of us.
Well, the trying days I look at as opportunities. You learn. And if you're not really, and I've worked on a bunch of campaigns, and if you're not learning, then you're not running a good campaign, because the idea is that society changes, people change. You must relate to the people. And so for me to be involved with Ron and a bunch of other people that are seriously talking about bringing a completely different vision of how we in Santa Fe can have a better quality of life for everyone. And I think that's the part of being on the campaign is the most enjoyable for me, and it's a lot of work and there's a lot of research that goes on. But, it's a team effort. And basically, we all know Ron for a long time. We know what he can do. I've seen him do it. And so my feeling is that we will win. And when Ron has his 6 points, and we've been working on these points, and we're out there every day. He's out there every day communicating with the people, and that's what is required. If you're just going to go out and talk about issues and give your opinion about the issues, that type of American politics, I think, is dead in the water. So I think we're on the right track. I think we have the right candidate, and it really is a great privilege for me to be Ron's campaign manager.
Well, thank you, Mike. Like you said, we are going out. We're talking to people. We're listening to people.
Right.
That has been the biggest part of this campaign right now is hearing the people here in Santa Fe. They're telling us what's wrong, what they don't like, what they want changed, and these are things we are taking to heart. And these are things we've integrated
Right.
these 6 steps. And we're going to definitely follow through. And we're just looking forward to that day that when we're in the mayor's office, and we're making a definite change, for the best for all the people in Santa Fe.
Right. And what you have here is a remarkable historic progression of cultures. So you have people who've been here for thousands of years. They're still here. They're living on the Pueblos, or they're living on the Navajo reservation. The Spanish people have been here for over 500 years, right? And they brought a global empire to this area. But they also inherited the indigenous people. But they're all still here, and they have to be acknowledged. That history is not history, it's the present.
Exactly.
And that's what people tend to think, well, that happened a long time ago. No, it's still happening. And you have to create a better government. And the only way to do that is to have people who are knowledgeable about government, who understand what works and doesn't work in the city government of Santa Fe. Ron knows that better than anybody. And, and people listen, people have opinions. I talk to teachers, I talk to policemen, I talk to firemen, I talk to people who are running, different departments in the government. They all have a very specific opinion about what they want. And if you're not listening, they can tell you're not listening. But pretty much they all know that Ron's listening.
I am.
Yeah,
I'm
he
definitely listening.
listens. He definitely listens. But you can, if you go back and look at Ron's track record over the 11, 12 years he was in the city council, you can just go down the whole list of people who called him and said, "Well, I can't go down this road because of this. It's not paved. It gets paved." Or there's senior citizens who can't get from point A to point B. Ron made sure they got point A to point B. Or you had homeless people, right? Well, now you have a homeless shelter that was renovated. Uh, and this is a personal thing. Ron brought baseball to Santa Fe. Now, I grew up in Brooklyn with the Brooklyn Dodgers, so I understand what baseball means. And if you went to the Fuego game last night, you had 600 or 700 people shouting Fuego. They were in love with their team. Baseball is a great motivator of communication among people. They love having their baseball team. And he brought baseball here. That is enormous. So Ron is really, like, I always call him the native son. He really is. And so I'm very confident about all of this. There are some good people running against him, but they don't bring the credentials, they don't bring the experience, they don't bring the knowledge. And you can't, I don't compare them. There's Ron, and they can run, let them run, that's fine. But my feeling is that the real challenge is getting young people to vote, and make them aware, like, this is your society too, and young people tend not to vote. So, we're trying to, get out the vote, explain to young people what has to be done. Uh, and so I think we're doing all that, and we have several more months, and we have a lot planned that we're going to be doing. And so I would say I'm pretty confident about Ron's candidacy.
I think we're doing all the right things.
Mhm.
Like you just talked about getting the kids.
Mhm.
We are reaching out to
Mhm.
those younger voters. We're letting them know who I am, what I'm about,
Mhm.
what I want to
Right.
do. I think a lot of it's funny now. Not funny, but when I see these kids that were
Mhm.
18 when I, or 14, 15 when I was coaching them.
Mhm.
Now they're adults. They
Mhm.
they have kids
Yeah, right.
graduating, from high school.
Mhm.
It's such a great feeling knowing, that
Mhm.
I was their coach at the time, and
Mhm.
now, their kids have just. I just went to one of my
Mhm.
former players. His son just graduated
Mhm.
last week, and I'm just like, it's so great, and that
Mhm.
they're still living here in Santa Fe.
Right.
They've continued to stay here in Santa Fe. They're making Santa Fe their home.
But you see, one of the things, the main way I met Ron is I moved here with my son, and my son loves baseball, but in New York City there was no little league, and we came across Ron, who was running a team, and then I realized that Ron is a baseball manager. He played sports, and a lot of young people identify with Ron. And my son still talks about Ron was his coach. He was on the team. You can't Ron's commitment to young people has been going on now for 12, 15, 20 years.
More, more than that,
More
probably.
than a long time,
Yeah.
and try coaching, see how it feels. It's not that easy. But
It's not.
it's not easy, because the parents can be the parents. But Ron was a great coach. All the kids loved Ron. And if you're a kid and you want to be on the team, and you're on Ron's baseball team, it's an unforgettable moment. My son still talks, and he's 26, 7 years old. Still talks about being on Ron's team. So Ron really understands the community, understands children, understands the importance of children. And if you're a mother or a father, that's the biggest priority in your life, is your children, and how their future gets shaped. Ron helps shapes the future for children in Santa Fe.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
those words.
You're welcome.
And what one thing you just talked about, the baseball team,
Mm.
the Fuego. We were there last night,
Right,
and I can't believe, they're starting their 14th season.
right.
It's hard to believe that in 2011,
Mm.
I introduced that resolution, and when we went there last night, 600, 700 people there,
Mm.
just Fuego, Fuego, Fuego. It's a good feeling. It's a great feeling for me. knowing that
Mm.
I was part of that I got the ball rolling. I mean, it's a very proud moment for me.
Well, when you have a capital city, and in America, baseball creates community. The people in Boston are Red Sox fans. People in New York are Yankee fans and Met fans, and it creates community among people. I grew up in Brooklyn, and there were the Yankees, the Giants, and the Dodgers, but we were Dodger fans. We were from Brooklyn. We were just poor working people, but we had Jackie Robinson. We had people like that, and those people became heroes for us. First black player, and then our parents would say, "Yeah, what about Jackie? How do you think he feels?" I think, "Oh, never thought about that." And so baseball brings people together. Last night was remarkable. The people all chanting together, Fuego, and all these young guys out there hustling. Uh, and that's what creates the community. People gather around their baseball teams. I was amazed that he brought baseball out here. I never thought it was possible.
It was a challenge. It was a
Yeah.
challenge.
Well, the thing is, like Albuquerque has the Isotopes, which is great, but that's AAA ball. Santa Fe, these are the local guys. Played high school ball, junior high school ball. So it's that aspect of Ron's personality to bring community together, and understand how government operates as well as how humanity is supposed to operate. And I think those are the great strengths that Ron brings to everything.
And Michael, and that's the thing that I want to convey as well is we're Santa Fe. We're the capital of the state of New Mexico.
Right.
And sometimes, unfortunately,
Mhm.
I don't think this city looks like a capital city.
Mhm.
Sometimes when you see trash on the road,
Mhm.
you see our medians.
Mhm.
Not, these are the things that we,
Mhm.
when we get in there, we're definitely gonna fix.
Right.
We want the city of Santa Fe to look and act like the capital city of New Mexico.
Mhm.
And once I'm elected, it is gonna.
Yeah, and it's not just a capital city; it is the oldest capital city. This has been here for a long time,
And highest in elevation as well.
and well, yeah, but we're surrounded by a beautiful environment, and this city can look much more prestigious, much more like a capital city, and I don't think it's going to be that difficult to do or that expensive to do, because you have to remember you have great artists here. You have the Santa Fe Institute. You have great minds here, great thinkers here. You have these universities here that are all about just really teaching the 100 great books. So you have the right people here to make this a beautiful city, an interesting city. You do get 2 million visitors a year to Santa Fe, but I agree with Ron. We can make it look more like a capital city, which I don't think will be difficult.
Yeah. Well, I think that's when we talk about when people come to Santa Fe,
Mm,
they fall in love with the cultures,
mm,
they fall in love with the traditions,
mm,
and they fall in love with history.
right.
That's what makes Santa Fe so remarkable. Such a
Yeah.
remarkable city.
Well, there's not another. Yeah, you can go back to the early days of Boston or New York, and you're talking about the 16th century, but we're talking about 1,000 years ago. That's the difference. People were here 1,000 years ago, where the plaza is. New Mexico is unique in that, in general, the most ancient sites in North America are all here. And so, but this is the capital city, and it wasn't just a capital city, it was the capital city of a monarchy creating a global empire. And what I love about Santa Fe is the real name, the Royal City of the Holy Faith. So you stop and think about if you're in the 15th, 16th century Spain, like 500, 600 years ago, and they had a vision of a world order, and it was based here, and they were trading from Asia here, and they set up a world here, and that's why you have the Hispanic culture here is enormous, but you also have the indigenous culture, which God knows has contributed so much, their spiritual life, their family life. I mean, these are huge gifts of history that we have here.
Exactly. Well, Michael, with that, I appreciate you.
Sure.
You are part of our family.
Mm.
We love you. We do.
Well,
You know,
I feel like I am part of the Trujillo family, and that is a great privilege for me. You know, my children are all grown up. I live alone, but you know, with the Trujillos, I feel like I have a family, and I know I have a family. So it's really a great honor for me to be part of the Trujillo family, but really working to support Ron. That's something that I'm very excited about.
well, like I said, I look forward to the next few months.
Yep.
You know, we're in it to win it.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to.
So with that, I will say uh, good night, Santa Fe. And as Michael said, you know, the real name of Santa Fe, La Vía Real de la Santa Fe de San Francisco de Asís. Buenas noches, Santa Fe.